Unit 3, Module 13, Patchwork. Module Objectives. By the end of this unit, students will be able to identify the different types of patchwork, recognize the usage of patchwork in the current fashion scenario. Introduction. Patchwork is a kind of needlework in which small pieces of cloth in different designs, colors or textures are sewn together. Introduction. The larger design is usually based on repeating patterns built up with different fabric shapes, which can also be different colors. These shapes are carefully measured and cut into basic geometric shapes, making them easy to piece together. Evolution of patchwork. In the early years, new fabric was scarce and very expensive. So was the applique. Therefore, the craft of patching was developed from pieces of good cloth taken from clothing that has gone past its best. In the ancient times, the motifs for patchwork was as follows. They depict their beliefs and faiths using symbols. A battle fought by showing what happened at the time using pictures. Dangers of living in remote areas, like coming across wild animals or difficult situations. Things that happen every day or seasons, like the growing of flowers or harvests. Some things they personally liked, such as types of animals, flowers and fruits. Basically, patchwork was used as a form of expressions of daily happenings during that particular period. Patchwork has been around since the 11th century. Possible reason could be the European climate, where the need to use what was available to stay warm was there. Though this is the first hint of organized patchwork, fabrics with a design reminiscent of patchwork have been found in Egyptian tombs and Chinese artifacts from over 5000 years ago. The 18th century saw the biggest explosion of patchwork with the help of paper templates. It was a welcome way for common folk to sew bits of expensive silk among most affordable cottons, improving the value of their quilts without spending a fortune. Page 9. Types of patchwork. Some of the different types of patchwork are stained glass window patchwork, cathedral window patchwork, Somerset patchwork, the trapunto, crazy patchwork, and applique, and much more. What we are seeing here are examples of the stained glass window patchwork. Please note how these fabrics resemble the look of a stained glass window. Somerset patchwork. The Somerset patchwork is also known as the folded star. The entire pattern requires only one rectangular shape template. The patches are simply formed from rectangles. They are made by folding rectangle into a triangle and attaching it to a base fabric. Crazy quilted patchwork. The term crazy quilting is often used to refer to the textile art of crazy patchwork, since a lot of time quilting and patchwork are combined and is sometimes interchangeably used with that term. Crazy quilting does not actually refer to a specific kind of quilting, but a specific kind of patchwork lacking repeating motifs and with the seams and patches heavily embellished. Page 11. Traditional structures of patchwork. There are three traditional structures used to construct a patchwork or pieced composition: the block, overall, and strip piecing. Traditional patchwork has identifying names based on the arrangement of colors and shapes. The block structure. Patchwork blocks are pieced squares made up of colored shapes that repeat specific shapes to create patterns within the square or block of, say, light and dark or contrasting colors. The block can all repeat the same pattern, or blocks can have several different patterns. The patchwork blocks are typically around 8 to 10-inch square. They are sewn together in stacked rows to make a larger composition. Types of block patchwork. Some common patchwork block names are log cabin, the drunkard's path, bear's paw, tulip block, and nine patch. Log cabin. The different methods in log cabin designs are off-center log cabin, courthouse steps with rings of color, courthouse steps with cornerstones, thick and thin cornerstone steps, courthouse steps with cornerstones surrounding a pieced block. This is an example of the off-center log cabin. Another variation of the log cabin is courthouse steps. The image can be seen here. What we are seeing here is an example of courthouse steps with rings of colors. This is an example of courthouse steps with cornerstones. Here is an example of thick and thin cornerstone steps. This is done by varying the size of the blocks. Page 19. Courthouse steps with cornerstones surrounding a pieced block can be seen here. The drunkard's path. Drunkard's path. The image shows some interesting examples of a drunkard's path design. Some more examples of drunkard paths design. Please note how interestingly the patterns create a kind of an illusion and causes the eye to move. It has an apt name. Another example of drunkard's path. In this case, variety has been created using different motifs. Please have a look at some more variations of the drunkard's path. The bear's paw. The bear's paw quilt block pattern is a traditional favorite and a design that can be manipulated in many other ways. Here are other examples of the bear's paw. The tulip block. The tulip block patch. Please note how the patches here in this image have been put together resembling the shape of a tulip flower, and hence it got its name. the 9 patch. It is a very simple quilt block made from 9 equally sized squares. Page 37. Other patch types are clamshell patchwork, starburst patchwork, crisscross patchwork, strip piecing, and winding ways patchwork. Here is an example of clamshell patchwork. On the left is an example of starburst patchwork, whereas on the right is an example of a crisscross patchwork. The shapes here indicates the names. Winding ways patchwork. Water wheel patchwork. Wanderfoot patchwork. The story goes that the name of this quilt pattern was changed from wandering foot to turkey tracks because it was believed that if a boy slept under this quilt, he would someday wander westward and be lost. Here is another example of turkey tracks patchwork. It is made up from 4 8-inch units and can be put together in a traditional way or used to make your design more individual and unique. Steps to the altar patchwork. Please note how this pattern gives you an impression of steps and hence the name. The Star of Bethlehem. We would have come across the same term while learning about quilts. The Star of Bethlehem quilt block was originally published in the 1930s and also known as Christmas Memory Quilt, Jewels in a Frame, Rolling Star, or the Star of Magi and Winged Star. The Shoe Fly Patchwork. This shoe fly block pattern shows how to stitch up. Here is an example of shoe fly patchwork. Overall patches. Overall patchwork designs are incrementally pieced geometric shapes stitched together to form a larger random or composed design. The colored shapes can be randomly pieced or follow a strict order to create a specific effect. Example, light to dark progression or checkerboard effects. Names such as hit or miss, clamshell, backstitch, needle weave, crisscross, and starburst identify some overall patchwork structures. Here are some of the overall patchwork structures. Strip piecing. Strip piecing involves stitching together pieces of fabric in repeat patterns into long strips and then stitching the strips together lengthwise. The patchwork strips can be alternated with strips of contrasting colors. A typical strip patch quilt is the 4-patch pattern as shown in the image here. The spider web patchwork. The image on the left shows spider web patchwork. On the right is also an example of the spider web patchwork. These are images of the Lincoln platform patchwork. The pineapple block patchwork. The pineapple block is a variation of the log cabin. The strips are sewn in the same way but usually in alternative light and dark colors. On every other journey round the center square, they are laid diagonally across the corners instead of parallel with the sides. Here is an example of the Prairie Queen patchwork. This is an example of the rail fence patchwork. It consists of fabric strips placed alternatively. These are ocean waves patchwork. This is an Ohio star patchwork. Here are images of an old maid's puzzle patchwork. This is an example of old tip canoe patchwork. These are called double X patchwork. This is a double Irish chain patchwork. Crosses and losses patchwork. Latest trends in patchwork. latest trends in patchwork. Have a look at these outfits by designer Givenchy, Takun and Proenza Schuler. Please note how patchwork has been incorporated into their garments. Some more examples of patchwork used in fashion. Patchwork in 2018. A recurring theme on the catwalks for the spring summer season was the patchwork design. Different patches of fabric, which looked as though they were taken from different items, were merged together to create something a little distorting and a result very memorable. One such example is the skirt at Lua, where it looked as though a tight skirt was combined with a flowy one in a unique way. Loewe featured dresses made of many panels of fabric coming together like a spring dress variation on a patchwork blanket. Another favorite is the way camisoles were combined with sweatshirts by Alexander Wang in a way that isn't practical but is certainly cool. This is an image of a high waist, multicolored scallop patchwork design. It is an A-line brocade jacquard fabric mini skirt. We can see a lot of images with patchworks here. With the usage of lace cutouts and patchwork, a dress can literally be converted into a piece of art. Please have a look at the images here. Here is an example of a patchworked skirt. Brightly colored suede skirts are quite popular trends. Please observe the images shown here. A hipster and bohemian long skirt can be seen here. Patchwork jacket. In menswear too, this fashion is very popular. This particular jacket was spotted in Antonio Mara's menswear collection. Patchwork on jeans. Patchwork on denims is the most modern form of patchwork. Whether they are on flared jeans or they appear as a small patchwork pocket, it is a trend that is getting popular day by day. We can confidently say that the patchworked jeans are a classic trend and are here to remain in trend for a long time. This is an example of Chloe's perfect patchwork poncho. Conclusion. The three traditional structures used to construct a patchwork are the block structure, overall structure, and strip piecing structures. All the patchwork types fall among one of these categories. Thus, in this module, you have learnt about the different types of patchworks. Thank you.